debate. The structure of the debate will come in the form of 6 questions, ranging from social issues to foreign policy. Each group will have 2 minutes to make their point with a random speaking order. If there is a blatantly direct attack, each group is entitled to a 1-minute rebuttal at the discretion of the moderators. Each group will have 1-minute long opening speeches before we get into the debate, and have 1 minute for closing points. Before I sit down, there are sign-up sheets for each of the 3 groups in the back on those chairs over there, just in case you're interested. Again, thank you all for coming, and enjoy the day.
Like I said, my name is Caleb Dixon, and I will be opening this debate with a quote by the 20th president. Now more than ever before, the people are responsible for the character of their Congress. If that body be ignorant, reckless, and corrupt, it's because the people tolerate ignorance, recklessness, and corruption. If it be intelligent, brave, and pure, it is because the people demand these high qualities to represent them in their national legislature. If the next centennial does not find us a great nation, it is because those who represent the enterprise, the culture, and the morality of the nation do not aid in controlling the political forces. We come here today to discuss important issues in our nation. Over the past couple of months, we have seen ourselves divided on more issues than at any other time in this nation's history. The 3 groups before us today represent the 3 major parties of the United States. And today we will hear them discuss issues ranging from social change to conflicts in the Middle East. And like he said, they will each open with a 1-minute opening idea.
I've just pulled out the names, and the speaking order for opening speeches is College Democrats first, followed by College Republicans, and third, College Libertarians.
All right. We are the College Democrats. My name is Morgan Louder. I'm the president of our chapter. This is Nick Sotilli. He is our treasurer. And we would love it if you guys at the end of this could go sign up on our listserv on one of those tables so you can be filled in on all the things that we do. We hope to give you guys a good time tonight.
And the College Republicans.
I'm Grace, and I'm the chair of the College Republicans, and this is Anna, and she is our secretary. And we have sign-up sheets in the back, and our organization just promotes personal responsibility and freedom, and so we'd love to have y'all join if you haven't signed up at all. That's it.
Okay, College Libertarians.
Hello everyone, my name is Ross Sabat. I'm the president of the College Libertarians.
And I'm Danny, I'm the treasurer of the College Libertarians.
And I assume a lot of you have either heard only a little bit or have never even heard of libertarians. The Libertarian Party is the 3rd largest political party in the United States and the fastest growing political party in the United States. We are the first 3rd party to ever receive more than 1 million votes in a presidential election. That was our candidate Gary Johnson in the 2012 election. We believe in individual liberties and personal responsibility, and I think over the course of this evening you'll find that a lot of you agree with us a lot more than you would think. Thank you very much.
Okay. With that, we're going to get into our first question.
The first question tonight is, the United States is currently involved in conflicts in Afghanistan, in addition to several other recent clashes in the Middle East. In your opinion, what is the ideal role of the United States in foreign policy?
The speaking order is Libertarians, College Democrats, then College Republicans.
The United States has a long history of interfering with Middle Eastern affairs. Since the Cold War and technically long before that, we've been trying to push our ideals and way of life on them. And multiple times it has backfired on us. In the 70s, we supplied and trained a group of rebels to fight the Soviets. And when it came time when we were trying to kill Osama bin Laden, one of the problems with fighting in the Middle East was that they were using the guerrilla tactics we had taught them. Some people argue that the citizens of the Middle East hate us, and admittedly, a small percentage might, but they're just tired of being there. It's been decades that we've been occupying their countries, and they just want us to come home.
And really, who can blame them? Imagine for a moment that a non-government entity here in the United States went over and attacked a foreign country. Let's say a gang from here in the United States attacked China. Then China decided to invade the United States because the United States government wouldn't clean up this organization the way that China felt it sufficiently should. Imagine that China came over to the United States and set up a military base in Sumter. Imagine that the Chinese troops here in the United States didn't have to obey our Constitution, didn't have to obey our laws. And while overall they tried their best to clean up only the gangs and to fight and kill only gang members, occasionally, due to bad information or simply military mistakes, they killed innocent women, children, and other civilians. Imagine for a moment that one of those innocent women, children, civilians was one of your family members. If the United States government would not take up arms to repel that foreign country, wouldn't you? The war on terror is a war against an idea, not against a government, not against a group of individuals. That idea is that the United States is a foreign aggressor that wants to tell these people how to live their lives while killing their sons and daughters if need be. We can't defeat that idea by continuing to fight these people, by continuing to try and tell them how to live their lives.
30 seconds.
These people are not pawns in our international foreign policy game. We cannot live and we cannot use their lives as we wish at our own discretion to achieve our goals. These are people just as we are people. We would not allow a foreign country to dictate how our country and how our government runs. Why are we attempting to do the same in other countries? Thank you.
Thank you. And next is College Democrats.
All right, well, I want to first start by saying that I think that comparison is inaccurate. The Taliban sheltered Osama bin Laden and refused to turn him in whenever we made the request. That is the reason why the war in Afghanistan happened. That being said, I'm sure many of us don't like the war on terror. I personally am not a fan of it either, but the reality is that it's happening, and the question shouldn't be whether or not we should be waging the war on terror, because again, that is something that we've committed to. It's not something that's going to be ended anytime soon, unfortunately. It needs to be how we're going to wage it. I think that our near total withdrawal from Iraq and next year our withdrawal from Afghanistan are good steps. I also think that our move to, instead of armed invasion with ground soldiers, which would cause hundreds of thousands of deaths, our transition to drone warfare, which since 2004 has killed about 3,000 civilians, or excuse me, not civilians, but total total people, including civilians. And I think that's much better than hundreds of thousands dead.
Thank you very much. Finally, College Republicans.
Right. Well, basically our opinion is that the best way to promote peace is through having a strong military. And, you know, we definitely don't want to be the world's police. Nobody wants that, and that's something I think we can all agree on. But, you know, our priority with foreign affairs is to prevent rogue states, which are often in the Middle East, from obtaining nuclear weapons, because when they have nuclear weapons, they're trying to attack Israel, and that, you know, then they're coming at us. Because, you know, we made a promise to Israel, and whether a lot of people like it or not, you know, we have to stand by them. And so, you know, our opinion on foreign policy is, you know, you want to prevent, you know, future escalations and conflicts, and the only way to do that is by having a strong front. But, you know, a lot of people in the media like to portray the Republicans as warmongering, and that's just not something we think. We think that, you know, everybody wants peace, but you can't just, you know, smile and, you know, say, oh, peace. So the best way to do it is through military. That's it.
Thank you very much. The next question on the agenda is, the Affordable Care Act was signed into law on March 23rd, 2010, in order to remedy healthcare problems in the U.S. In light of the recent debates on the law and issues with implementation, do you think this was the correct course of action? If not, what would you do differently to address the healthcare problem? The order of this question is College Republicans, Libertarians, and College Democrats.
Okay. The only reason that there is a mandate is because people don't want it. It sounds like a great idea, but in all reality, it's just not going to work. The the fact that the president lied to us, and we have, there are now new standards for all insurance now under Obamacare. People are getting dropped from their health insurance. And the reason why the president didn't inform us of that is because he knew he wouldn't win the election. But anyways, the reason that those standards are put into place is so when people get dropped, they're forced into the exchange. I know people personally. My old boss was dropped from his insurance, small business owner, and saw the only option for him was 70% more than what he was paying before. Also, one of the standards under the law is that everybody have maternity coverage. Why would an older person or a single guy need maternity coverage? Like, it literally makes no sense. And $634 million was spent on the website, and it doesn't even work. Proves that if they can't even run a website, how are they going to manage everybody's health care and health insurance? Health insurance is not a guaranteed human right in the Constitution. We think that it should be privatized and back to the way that it was before, because we already had a system in place for those who couldn't afford it, like Medicaid, and for the elderly, Medicare. I mean, we already had that. There was no need. In my opinion, there was no healthcare crisis to begin with. It was just kind of made up to, I don't know what his goals were, but
30 seconds.
Possibly socialized medicine, single payer system, but I don't think we would want that because that would be extremely costly. So,
Yeah, basically just handing over an entire project to the federal government isn't something that we think is in the best interest of the American people.
I mean, you saw how the website turned out. Like, that says enough for itself.
Thank you very much. You're out of time. College Libertarians.
I think overall the Republicans have covered ad nauseum a lot of the issues with the implementation of the Affordable Care Act. So I'm going to focus a little bit more on what an alternative would be, as well as why the Affordable Care Act from its institution was bound to fail. Firstly, I will have to disagree with the Republicans in that we did have a problem with health care. I don't know anybody who has ever tried to pay for health care coverage that wouldn't say that it's a little bit pricey. We absolutely did have a problem in that sector. We had an industry that was covered in red tape and that was extremely expensive and that we weren't getting enough out of. Why we then decided to take that industry that was overly bureaucratic and was too expensive and gave it to the only thing we could think of that was more bureaucratic and more expensive in the U.S. government, I don't know. The alternative would have been to turn it over to the open market. Even before the Affordable Care Act was passed, we did not have a truly open market in the healthcare system. There were a select few healthcare providers that were allowed in each state, and there were in fact federal regulations banning healthcare providers from competing across state lines, which led to a lot of the problems we had in the affordable care, in the healthcare industry, where people in, I think Washington was one of the states, Washington State had one of the lower healthcare premiums across the country, whereas South Carolina had some of the higher ones. There were people in who, for all other intents and purposes, same age, same gender, same background, could get healthcare coverage in Washington State at half the price of what they could get in South Carolina, even before the healthcare exchanges. That's because the companies in Washington State could provide all of these goods and services and only ever had to compete with the other companies in Washington State. Whereas the companies here in South Carolina didn't have to compete with that company from Washington State. I don't have to lower my price if there's nobody else who can undercut me right now. Imagine if Apple was in Washington State and Samsung was here in South Carolina. Apple would have no incentive to create new products, to create better products, to create cheaper products if they didn't have any real competitors in their state.
30 seconds.
Same thing with Samsung here in South Carolina. The best way to lower prices across the healthcare industry is to reduce the regulations and allow the free market to get in there and clean out the rot in the bureaucracy. Force companies that are not doing well, that are charging too much, to bring their prices down, otherwise they lose their customers to somebody else who's willing to provide better coverage at a lower price. Thank you.
Thank you very much. College Democrats.
Well, the Republicans have said that there's no crisis to begin with. I fundamentally disagree on this point. When the bill was signed, there were 50 million uninsured people. there's additionally some people that had inadequate coverage. At the time the bill was passing, it was the #1 reason for bankruptcy, not being able to pay medical bills. Democrats fundamentally believe that it is a human right, that everyone deserves good medical care, and that no one should go broke from paying medical bills. We had a broken system. I don't think the Libertarians would disagree with me on the Republicans might. And it would have just been irresponsible to not fix it. It's funny, though, because this is such a conservative plan. Republicans have been touting this individual mandate idea for years and years, most notably Mitt Romney, because it's a good idea. It combines two American principles, the first of which is personal responsibility, putting the onus on individuals to get health insurance rather than the government to hand it out. And it combines a competitive marketplace, which will drive prices down lower. I disagree with the Libertarians. There has to be some regulation in the insurance market. It's because of this regulation that we've been able to, now insurance companies are unable to drop people with pre-existing conditions. They, of course, define the pre-existing conditions. Furthermore, if your students can stay on their insurance of their parents up until they're 26 years old. But I hear a lot about the problem with the glitches with the website. We shouldn't forget that President Bush's Medicare Part D expansion had its fair share of glitches. It had to be delayed for weeks. And y'all may have heard this analogy, but when Apple rolls out a new product and there are glitches in the first generation, they don't just scrap the iPod entirely. They fix it and they put it back out there. But if the GOP didn't drag their feet the entire way, I think this law would run more smoothly. Had they expanded Medicare coverage, as the federal government has asked them to do, then we'll see better coverage. If they set up state-based exchanges, we'd see better coverage. The federal government does not need to be handling 36 different states' exchanges. Unfortunately, I have to now. I also agree that it's best when states and local governments handle the burden.
Thank you, College.
The third question will be, social issues such as marriage equality, marijuana legalization, abortion, and gun control have received an abundance of media attention recently. What degree of influence and at what level should the government impact social change? And the order will be college Republicans, college Democrats, and Libertarians.
Well, we're going to start off with gun controllers. We like to say gun rights. You know, it's in the Constitution, so there's really not much to argue about that we have the right to bear arms. And take it away with the rest.
That shall not be infringed. In regards to gay marriage, we believe that this isn't the typical, this is the college Republicans' view of gay marriage. I think the new our generation of Republicans, I don't think there's many that are against gay marriage. We think that they should be, that civil unions should provide equal benefits that marriage provides. In regards to marijuana legalization, we think that it should be federally decriminalized and left up to the states. And if it's a success for some states that do legalize it, then maybe all the states should consider legalizing it. Too much time and money is spent in regards to police force looking for marijuana and throwing people in jail for it, and time equals money, so time should be spent more wisely looking for things that are actually harming people, like hardcore drugs or guns or whatever. In regards to abortion, if abortion isn't the business of the government, why are our tax dollars going to Planned Parenthood? I mean, that's like, I wish somebody could answer that question for me, because that's my biggest problem with it. We do believe that it is murder, but we are aware that our views, we don't expect everybody to agree with that. It is murder after, we do believe that it is murder after the third trimester, though, and that late-term abortions should be federally banned. Unless the woman faces a serious health risk. And because why on earth would you wait? If you're going to have an abortion, why would you wait to have one? I mean, it literally makes no sense. And it's kind of a hard concept to grasp, like...
I think that's it.
Okay.
Democrats, you're up.
All right, since you guys started with guns, I'll go ahead and start with guns. I think that, I mean, with shootings happening almost monthly, it's ridiculous for us to not do anything about the shootings. I mean, we have more gun violence than any other country in the world, and it's not just those mass shootings. It's also gang violence in inner cities. It's all over the country, and it's bizarre that we have done nothing to even try to curtail that. I'll give you an example. Whenever the United Kingdom had their big school shooting, what they decided to do, they decided to just ban all guns. We're not even suggesting that. We want simple things like background checks, but the Republicans and Libertarians won't even get behind that. It's really bizarre. So when it comes to guns, we think something should be done. We think that steps should be made to reduce gun violence. When it comes to gay marriage, we are in favor of marriage equality, plain and simple. We think it should be done at the federal level, not at the state level. If we leave it up to the states like our own are going to just say, no marriage equality for you, and gay people in South Carolina aren't going to be getting the same benefits as a gay person living in, say, Virginia, or excuse me, Vermont. When it comes to abortion, we think that women should have the right to choose. It should be safe, legal, and rare. You make it rare by providing access to birth control and contraceptives so that women won't have the need to go get an abortion, but it should still be available for women who are in need of it. And when it comes to marijuana, I mean, we think it should be legalized at the federal level again, not at the state level, for similar reasons to why we think gay marriage should be legalized at a federal level and not a state level.
Libertarians, you are up.
I will not be starting with guns. We believe that the government has no need to be involved in any of these affairs. The role of government is to protect its citizens from foreign powers and from each other. And if something that I'm doing isn't hurting you, why should I be stopped from doing that? If I decide to eat a cookie, does that interfere with your diet? If Ross and I want to get married, does that interfere with the normal marriage? If I get high, does that stop you from being drug-free? Even though I'm personally not, I don't smoke pot, I have no plan on marrying another man, I don't own a gun. And I wouldn't, I can't have an abortion, but if I could, I wouldn't. I don't think that my opinion should stop you, and likewise, I think that the government shouldn't interfere with your ability to choose.
I have a rebuttal.
We're not.
Oh, you're not done? Okay.
Can I get extra time?
Sure.
I'm just going to go. I think it's wonderful that the Republicans have finally seen the light on so many of these social issues. I just wish that they would call their politicians and let them know as well, so that we can get some policy consistency. As far as guns go, everybody else started with that. I'm going to wrap up with it. I just want to stress that there is a difference between allowing guns, quote unquote, and endorsing gun violence. In counties throughout the United States, and locations throughout the United States, various locations have banned handguns, banned assault rifles, banned various things, and in fact have seen that their gun violence has gone up. Unfortunately, bans don't work. Just like that ban of marijuana, you can still get that stuff. I don't know if you know. Bans don't work. They only ensure that the only people who end up with the various stuff that's been banned are the people who are not supposed to have these things, are the lawbreakers, are the evildoers. As far as high-capacity mags and things like that, I think all of these are very important because if you look at the statistics, if you look at the actual numbers, I know the emotional response is always something bad happened involving guns. Take the guns away so it doesn't happen. 3 or 30? 30. Take the guns away so it doesn't happen again. I certainly understand that emotional response, but the facts, quite frankly, don't back that up. Taking the guns away is not going to make the gun violence stop. In fact, even if you were to get all the guns and get all of the guns out of the United States, on the same day as the Sandy Hook shooting in China, a mass stabbing occurred where 26 people were stabbed with a pocket knife and were killed. You can't stop the violence. You cannot stop the crazies from doing crazy things by taking the guns away. Crazy people are going to be crazy no matter if they have guns or not.
Thank you. And you wanted rebuttal?
Yes. So, Ross, you're absolutely wrong. On the past day in China, no one died. Similar number of victims, 0 deaths. At Sandy Hook, you know how many people died. A lot of people died. You're saying that 0 people died in the China stabbing, which is just flat out wrong. Also, you're saying that more guns in circulation means less gun violence. That's what you're saying. That's also not true. The American Journal of Medicine published a study that said that the amount of guns in circulation has a direct correlation to the amount of gun violence. And what I was initially going to respond to was, I was going to say, why do libertarians, if they don't want the government in any issue, constantly back politicians that have such extreme right-wing views on these social issues, but they just want to have it done at a state level? Namely, Ron Paul and his son Rand Paul, another example. That's
okay. Very good.
You need to respond. Just 30 seconds.
That's fine. Yeah.
I don't want to go into too much back and forth. I just want to establish that I never said give everybody a gun. That'll stop gun violence. If you want to look at numerical statistics as far as prevalence of guns and gun violence, you can look at, is it Switzerland? Yeah, Switzerland. Every single person has an assault rifle, and they have the lowest gun violence in Europe. But that's not what I want to address. I want to stress that Ron Paul and Rand Paul are both Republicans. They are libertarian-leaning Republicans. Okay, the actual libertarian candidates do not endorse so many of the things that they claim that are looking against. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Student loan debt is higher now than it has ever been in our history. What is the best method for solving the student loan issue? The speaking list is Libertarians, followed by College Democrats, followed by College Republicans.
I know we talked a lot in the last couple, so I'll keep this one short. How many of you have taken an economics class? Micro, macro, any of them? Raise your hand. All right, so you all are familiar with the basics of supply, or quantity and demand, and supply and demand, and all those things. All right, so if you artificially increase the quantity demanded of any good by offering to pay for that good, then the price is going to go up. If I offer to buy all of you new cars, you're going to look at, which car looks the nicest, which one's the safest, which one is going to cost me the least in gas, but you're not going to look at which one's the most expensive, because I offered to pay for it. Similarly, when the government subsidizes education through so many of the things that they do, be it scholarships and so on, for the people who don't get scholarships, that increases the price because you have artificially inflated the demand. While I agree that for the people who get scholarships are great. Luckily, I'm one of them. For everyone else who doesn't get scholarships, it drives the price up for all of those people. And those are the people, more often, the people who don't get scholarships are the ones who need them the most. And for that reason, I think a lot of the cost in, the increase in cost in education is directly related to the prevalence of government scholarships. Additionally, at all levels of education, we seem to be pressing to almost the entire population that college is the way to go. If you want to be successful, you have to go to college. And most of the people in this room, I assume, are in college. However, I think it's important that we recognize that college is not the right path for everyone. And that by pushing everyone to college, that further inflates that demand for this good. And as any free market, when the demand increases, the price is going to increase. I think we as a society need to recognize that different people have different ideal outcomes for their lives, that different people are good at different things, and that there are different paths to be successful. And that ultimately success doesn't have to be defined the same way for everyone. And I think it's important that we allow people to differentiate in their education and not force everyone, or I don't want to say force, not push everyone towards college, because I think that is directly increasing the cost of college for everyone else. So I'll wrap up there. Thank you very much.
Colin?
I think President Barack Obama said it best when he said that college education is not a luxury, it's an economic imperative. A well-educated workforce is absolutely needed in a global economy. It also is good for society as a whole. As such, it's within the scope of government to do something about the high price of college education. Now, there are a couple ways to address the rising cost of education. One way is through federal loans. It's been a very successful program. Currently, the Stafford loan rate is 3.4% interest. If Republicans had their way, it would go up to 6.8%. However, we support a plan proposed by Senator Warren, which would bring down the rate on college loans to 0.75%, which is the same rate that the government loans money to the big banks. If we're going to be serious about college education, I think this is a good step forward. But loans aren't the only option. We look at need-based grants like Pell Grants. Pell Grants have been very successful at giving money to low-income students. President Barack Obama has expanded the amount of Pell Grants given out each year. But the real issue, though, is tuition. In the last 20 years, it's increased nearly 300%. The median household income has pretty much stayed the same during that time. Additionally, the state and federal governments need to do their part to fund institutions of higher learning. One idea suggested by the president is to tie funding to colleges' performances and rather their value. But once you're out of college, one good program we have is capping the amount of income that can be go towards paying back a loan to 10%. So that way that debt remains manageable.
Okay, thank you very much. College Republicans?
Well, we don't have like a hyper-partisan solution. We just heard about this, like that this was being done on the state level, and we liked it. So this is not like endorsed by any particular party, but it's students in certain states can go to school for like basically free or free if they need it, and then when they get a job after they graduate, they can pay part of their income. Like some schools do it like some states do it like 3% for sometimes 20 years, but that's not like the official Republican platform. That's just something that we liked.
I think this is a really good plan because it would make kids more competitive, because a lot of times kids don't even try because they know they can't afford college. And I think if kids could go for free, they would try a little bit harder. And this is a good way, a good idea. It would make colleges get the students in and out faster and not waste a bunch of time and a bunch of money. And I think the career services that colleges offer would really step up in trying to make sure that these kids have higher paying jobs, because regardless of what, how much you make, you're still giving back 3%. So if you're making $1 million a year, you're giving back $3,000 a year. And so it's in their best interest to find good jobs for people.
Yeah, like we said, this isn't like official Republican like platform. It's just like an idea that we liked. So there are lots of solutions out there. That's it.
Okay.
Oh, yes. Rebuttal.
The College Republicans just said that maybe there could be some sort of system in place to where you don't pay for your college until you're done. That's called a loan. Additionally, they say they don't have a platform. Well, Mitt Romney did have a platform last election. I believe that went something along the lines of ask your parents for money for college. That's not an option for many students.
We weren't saying that the Republican Party didn't have a platform.
Yeah.
We were saying that what we just said isn't part of the Republican Party's platform. This is just something that we like.
College Republicans,
Yeah,
not Mitt Romney.
Yeah. Just to clarify.
Okay. Sam, last question is, privacy rights have been a hot issue as of late. Where do you think the line should be drawn between national security and individual privacy? And the order is the College Republicans, College Democrats, and last, the Libertarians.
Did you skip a question? We skipped the economy question.
Yeah, we were going to round back on that. That's my fault.
Oh, cool.
Okay. Basically, if you're not doing anything wrong, you should have nothing to worry about. I don't think that,
Yeah, we just, we don't have, like, a lot of people feel very strongly about this, and, they should. They should be worried, because government intervention can escalate. But we don't have a problem with the recent revelations that the NSA does have some phone records, because, I think it's really important that we catch the people who want to harm our country. And I know that a lot of people, aren't willing to compromise their phone records for this, but we are.
We wouldn't know
I don't
about
mind.
it. Yeah, we wouldn't even know about this, so it's really not affecting anybody.
Yeah.
If
And-
we wouldn't know about this if Edward Snowden hadn't.
And we understand. If they were listening on my phone calls, I would definitely have a problem with that. And I understand the argument that it can quickly escalate, but as of right now, there's not about our opinion.
Okay, College Democrats.
All right, well, I'm not going to say that there's no reason why people should care about about government surveillance. Obviously, no one really wants to be spied on or anything like that. At the same time, though, it's something that is an unavoidable occurrence in modern law enforcement and modern counter-terrorist activities. What I do think needs to be done is transparency on it. The reason why the Snowden thing was such a big deal is because there was no transparency. You had to look really deep to know all that stuff was going on until Snowden revealed everything that he revealed. One proposal has been made by Dianne Feinstein, and that is really making the NSA a lot more transparent than it was before. And I think that's the type of path that we should be taking moving forward.
Can I ask a question?
Can we wait till Libertarians?
Oh, yeah.
I want to get through this. Both of the Libertarians.
I actually do have a question to start with. I was wondering if I could see your cell phone. I just need to go through your text messages to make sure.
I don't think that they're looking at the text messages.
Really? Because that's exactly what the NSA does.
And
You just said you had no
why
problem
would
with them checking your phone records.
Can we please?
I
Fair,
text. I mean, if they see what numbers
You
I'm
don't need a
texting.
package shot.
That's not a tax.
Well, Ben Franklin once said that they who give up essential liberty to obtain a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety. The war on terror is the main reason that we've stepped up a lot of privacy, looking at into people's privacy and reducing it. And people say that one of the reasons that there are terrorists is because they hate the amount of freedom that we have. So if we're giving up our privacy and our freedom to have that privacy, then technically the terrorists would be winning.
So I think it's very important that we as Americans remember how it is we got our start. We got our start rising up against a totalitarian government that was not respecting our rights, that was intruding on our rights. And one of the key things that was important in that revolution was the dissemination of information and the discretion and all of that stuff. We have 3 amendments that either directly deal with or indirectly deal with your right to privacy and your due process rights. Because the Founding Fathers thought it was essential that you have the right to privacy. If you don't have the right to be able to keep your information private, you don't have the right to really have that information at all. If the government's going to know exactly what you say, when you say it, no matter who you say it to, do you really have the right of freedom of speech? If the government can hear what you say at all hours of the day, if the government can then decide what to do with that, if they can label you as a terrorist at their discretion with no trial and ship you off to Gitmo, do you really have freedom of speech anymore?
30 seconds.
That's 1984 for you guys. Is that the world we want to live in? Thank you.
College Republicans, you had a question for the College Democrats?
Yeah, what exactly is Dianne Feinstein's plan for transparency? Because the only transparency I have seen is through Edward Snowden. Like, I mean, we wouldn't know, but we wouldn't be discussing this right now
I mean,
if
you
he
just-
hadn't have come out and leaked a bunch of stuff. I mean,
You just basically said that you didn't care what Edward Snowden did, and now you're using him as an example.
no, I'm asking what
Well, I mean,
the
listen,
plan is because he's the only reason why we know about this.
I don't have Dianne Feinstein's bill right in front of me. I can't tell you exactly everything
Give
that's
me
in
like
it,
a
but
summary.
the summary of it is that it allows transparency with the NSA.
How?
So what the so I mean, what's funny about this? It allows transparency. I'm not going to be able to tell you exactly how that happens whenever I don't have the bill right in front of me where I can't read it. From what I understand is it publicizes what the NSA does on certain things. Now, things that it won't be publicizing is like top secret, like security stuff that I don't think that any rational person would want to have revealed to the public. I don't know how much more you want me to tell you. I mean, I'd recommend Googling it. I mean, it's easy to find.
I mean, y'all used it as an example. I was just asking because this administration has shown no transparency.
Would you be careful when you Google it, what search terms you use to
All right, with that, we're going to move on. And this is kind of this is prescient as the last question. The economy was polled as the #1 issue in the last election cycle. What is the best approach to maintaining a healthy economy? This is college Republicans, followed by college Democrats, and finally the Libertarians.
Okay, the corporate tax rate right now is 55%. My dad runs a small business, and at the end of the year, he is supposed to pay 55% of his total earnings. And why do you think people put their money overseas? Why would any company want to give 55% of their earnings to the federal government to waste? So that my dad, what he has to do is towards the end of the year, he's forced to, he doesn't have much time to really think about it. He has to buy a new machine or he has to use it for something, and it's normally not something that's in the best interest of the company. Companies should not be making business decisions based on avoiding the government taxes and what the government says.
Just like the best way, our philosophy is pretty simple, just the government needs to stay out of the free market as much as possible to allow businesses, to be free of, unnecessary regulations and to promote, you're not gonna hire as many people if you're getting taxed at a higher rate. That's just the math.
55%, that's half, that's more than half. Also, we think that more money should be left in people's pockets, and Washington needs to cut spending and particularly reduce the spending on welfare. We've spent just about $1 trillion this past year, and when the war on poverty was declared in 1964, the poverty rate was 15%. We have spent $15 trillion since then, and the poverty rate is still at 15%. So that's $15 trillion that we could have left in people's pockets to start businesses.
Spend it on something else.
Yeah, spend it on something
30 seconds.
more wisely than, when it gets to the point where the government's putting your food on the table for you, it's just not.
And there's no end to it.
People aren't getting jobs. Why would you go look for a job when the government does it for you or pays you to do nothing? So, I know people go through hard times, but it's just the system we have in place has gotten way out of hand.
That'll be it. Thank you. College Democrats.
Well, one of the great things about the 2012 election is that it allowed you to see the many misconceptions that Republicans have about the economy. You heard a lot about job creators. They seem to think that job creators create jobs out of the goodness of their hearts. They don't. The only way to increase jobs is to increase the demand for goods and services. And you do that by having a large middle class, a large working class with money that they can spend. Republicans seem to think that tax cuts are some magic solution to any economic problem. They're not. There's a whole host of examples of times in America's history where we've had tax rates much higher than what they are now, and we've had economies much better than what they are now. For instance, under Eisenhower, the top marginal tax rate was 90%, and the economy was booming at that time. They also seem to think that the rich are oppressed, they're taxed too much. I would say this is just not true. We've lowered their taxes from that 90% figure I was referring to earlier to the low 30s. But the income gains experienced from 1979 to 2007, the top 1%, their income has grown by over 280%. During the same period, the middle fifth of people, their income grew about 25%. So you see a huge disparity between the two. Furthermore, since the recession hit, 95% of income gains have gone to that top 1%. They are wealthier than ever, and they're taxed at probably the lowest rates since World War II. However, the best way to grow the economy would be through investment and constant reinvestment, both from the private sector and from the public sector. You do that through reasonable taxation and regulation. You don't need to strangle business, but we do need clear regulation and taxation. You mentioned that there's a lot of money overseas. $21 trillion of American money overseas. We need to get that back somehow and into the economy. I would suggest we reform the tax code to close, not only just close loopholes, but to close these offshore tax havens. Additionally, I think the government has a responsibility to spend money during a recession to get the economy going.
30 seconds.
President Obama's stimulus worked. The bailouts worked. And he, they did. He made the Bush tax cuts for lower and middle income individuals permanent. And however, I think we need to go further. We need to have an infrastructure bank so that we can fix the crumbling roads and bridges in this country. But October is probably the most telling month of the Obama administration. That was Obama's 43rd month in a row of job creation, and that was the same month that Republican antics shut down the government, costing the economy $24 billion.
Thank you.
Democrats are the only responsible ones when it comes to the economy.
Thank you. College Libertarians.
Just real quick survey, how many of you would like to have a job? Okay, do you feel like the bailout worked for you? No, I didn't think so. If you felt like the stimulus worked for you, we still have an unemployment rate hovering around 8%, which is pretty much what it was in 2008 when we started this recession. I would say we've spent trillions of dollars trying to stimulate an economy, and the reason that that doesn't work is because you cannot lift a bucket by the handle if you are also in that bucket. You cannot take money from one person, give money to another person, and call it creation of money or wealth. The government is not in the business of creating wealth. It's not in the business of creating jobs. It is in the business of redistributing wealth, money, and jobs. In fact, if we're going to be completely honest here, I'm not overly worried about jobs on the whole, as far as a number. In fact, the entire progression of human history is not about creating jobs, it's about destroying them. Okay? When the cotton gin was created, it destroyed thousands of jobs across the United States. When trains were created, it destroyed thousands of jobs across the United States. Every single thing that we have, the whole idea is to allow one person to do more work, to increase the productivity of the individual workers. That is the story of advancement. And you do that by allowing businesses, by allowing individuals to access the free market, to get what they need, and to innovate. You can't allow people to innovate while constantly changing the rules of the market, while constantly trying to manipulate the market and steer it how you see fit. No business, no economic steering committee, be it in the House, be it in the Federal Reserve, no group of people is smarter than everyone in America. You cannot allow the government, any group, any number of government people to try and steer the economy. No group of government entities is smarter and makes better decisions for you than you do.
30 seconds.
We encourage the individual and individual businesses to have as much freedom to choose what they want within the economy and do whatever you want with your business as long as you're not hurting anybody else as possible. At the same time, if you do something with your business and your business collapses, we're not going to save you. You cannot continue to save businesses that are going out of business because they have bad business models. Why are you propping up failed companies? In the words of Ron Swanson from Parks and Recreation, why give food to a dying animal when you instead could let that animal die and feed it to the next generation?
I think that's your time.
I have a rebuttal for the
You
Democrats.
go.
I have a rebuttal for the Libertarians.
You have a rebuttal for the Libertarians. Do you have a rebuttal for the Libertarians?
No,
the Democrats.
Okay, so let's go in a circle here. Okay,
Alright.
Republicans first, and then Democrats.
50% of the jobs created since Barack Obama has been in office have been in Texas, first of all. So I don't think Obama deserves
Credit.
all of that credit for the job creation because, yeah, 50% have been in Texas alone.
If you're wondering, Rick Perry is the governor. He's a Republican.
And also the top 50% of income earners in this country pay 97% of all the money that, all of income taxes. So we have a 50% who pays nothing.
Okay, Democrats, you wanted to respond to a Libertarian?
I just had a question actually. Where do you have any examples of your economic philosophy existing in the real world?
I'm not understanding the question.
Like, where has your economic philosophy that you're pushing forward, that you think should happen, existed in history?
Well, anytime a government isn't picking favorites in the market and giving those favorites money, that's an example of art.
That's not the question. Name one.
The United States between... there are actually a lot of companies that follow our policy, and the reason for that is that it's very difficult for people with this, who propose this economic model, to get elected, because the very companies who are receiving bailouts, AIG, Ford, all of these other companies that are getting bailouts, give money to the politicians who are going to give them bailouts and are going to play favorites with them.
So
The company... The politicians who are saying, I'm not going to give bailouts to businesses, don't get money from those businesses. That's why libertarians often don't get elected in these cycles, is because we don't play favorites in the economy. We are not pro-business. We are business neutral. We're not going to save your business, we're not going to give your business money, but we're also not going to hamper your business, and we're not going to give a bunch of regulations to your business.
So the reason why he couldn't name one is because libertarian economics is totally fantasy. It exists in a fantasy world, but not in the real world.
All right. Do you want to respond to that? I mean, I'll give you 30 seconds.
I've played a lot of fantasy video games, and none of them had a free market.
I mean, I think you already answered it by saying there's none that has ever existed. There's no example of a totally free market where big business is going to treat their labor kindly and justly. It just doesn't happen.
That I would like to respond to.
Go ahead.
It's going to take 10 seconds. Business has no choice but to treat their labor at approximate fair market value, because there are other businesses that would love to treat you a little bit better, although not quite at your market value, and they undercut each other. Imagine, for example, an auction for $1. If I offered $1, for the true market value of $1 is absolutely $1. All of you at auction, you may all want to pay 1 cent for this $1, but because there's several of you that want to buy this $1 and want the productivity the $1 will give you, you are forced to bid against each other until you get to 97, 98, 99 cents. You get pretty darn close to the value of the $1. Similarly, when a worker is offering the value of their labor, companies have to pay pretty near that value to get the value, otherwise some other company will undercut them and get the value of that.
What do you think of like child labor then? What is their market value?
Can we wrap this up?
I mean, but he's not responding.
Well, I mean, it's their
silly.
It's their prerogative, and that's.
I mean, I suppose it is. I mean, I just want to know the answer.
They can answer it however.
I mean, do you want to answer my question? What do you think the fair market value?
I think we're done.
Yeah, I think we are done with that. Okay.
I'm not done.
And you can address them. You can address it in your closing arguments. We have 1 minute closing arguments. The order for this is Libertarians, College Republicans, and College Democrats. You have 1 minute each.
All right. Well, I'm going to wrap up by quoting. I think it's Young Jeezy. I'm gonna do you, you do, or I'm gonna do me, you do you. Libertarians believe that you have the ultimate right to decide what you want to do in your life. Do whatever the hell you want, as long as you're not hurting anybody else when you do so. We are completely against the initiation of force, be it on behalf of the government or on behalf of the individual, to achieve anyone else's aims. Do what you want with your life, as long as, in doing so, you are not stepping on anyone else's toes. You want to get high, get high. You want to start a business, start a business. You want to get married to Danny, get married to Danny. As long as Danny agrees to it as well. We wholeheartedly support the right of the individual, and with those rights and with those decisions come the consequences. If you, as an individual, make a decision that negatively affects you in the long run, the government does not have the constitutional authority to come and save you. It's not a good business model for the government. It's a large part of the reason that we are in so much debt that we're in. So in short, do what you want.
Thank you very much. College Republicans?
Well, first of all, I want to thank y'all for all coming, but, basically, we just believe in, personal responsibility. That's the bottom line of the Republican Party. You take care of yourself and your family, and
No dependency, no nanny state,
nanny state.
basically.
None of that. That's about it.
National security.
Thank you very much. College Democrats, you have 1 minute.
Well, I mean, I guess you've heard what we believe. And it's up to you if you like what we believe or not. Obviously, a lot of you probably won't. And I think it's important to say that the Democratic Party is also very diverse in things. Not everyone's going to believe what I believe. Not everyone's going to believe what Nick believes. And if you're a Democrat out there, not everyone's going to believe what you believe as a Democrat either. I mean, we are a party that is, people like to call us the catch-all party because people that come from all political spectrums like to be a part, like to join up with us. We do try to offer solutions that I don't think that the Libertarians offer or the Republicans offer, and it is up to you if you think they are good.
Okay, I think that wraps it up for tonight. I was going to ask if, just wondering if anyone would you mind accepting questions?
Well,
perhaps for the argument? Would you all be interested? Please address to one of the groups.
If I may suggest, perhaps one of the moderators could go out and screen the questions just to make sure that they're not exactly the same thing as something we've already talked about.
Well, I don't think we have that many questions. I mean, I just...
He really doesn't want to answer what his market value is.
Well, this is a good question, but it's for libertarians, and it's not an angry question, but dealing with, your freedom to do how you want. What if a woman is pregnant and she wants a late-term abortion? It is her body to do whatever she wants, but do libertarians agree that she should be allowed to abort that baby no matter how late the trimester is? Your advice.
Before I answer, there is a bit of a split within the Libertarian Party on abortion on the whole at any point in the abortion process. And that is because there is such a wide philosophical and moral difference in the definition of what life is. But I think that part of the idea of the Libertarian Party is that if there is not a clear-cut scenario in which a person is being harmed, we don't step in. So this is not a clear-cut situation. And for me personally, right, my personal stance on this issue, stepping away from the Libertarian Party for a moment, I say that a person is alive when they are thinking and when they are feeling. I'm not a doctor. I don't know when that step is for a baby. Personally, that is when I would draw the line. Stepping back in the Libertarian seat for a moment, when there is not, like I said, a clear-cut definition of harm to an individual, you don't step in.
Any other questions? Yes.
This is towards college Republicans. I'm only allowed to go to one group, right?
We can open up the question if anyone else wants to speak after.
Okay. I guess this is more towards college Republicans. In my studies of political science, one thing that has always stood out to me is that Democrats are more secular, Republicans are more religious. And as I've watched many news outlets, I see that a lot of Republican politicians will use legislation based on religion. Like, do you think that's important, or do you think the Republicans need to stop that?
I think that needs to be stopped, but you have to remember that our country was founded on Christian principles.
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, like, I appreciate it when, like, my politicians, take, like, their moral compass, when they take, like, their morals into consideration, like, in votes and stuff. But, then again, like, we are a country and we accept, like, every religion and everything. And so, I think it's important that, people are elected from a variety of religions or non-religions. But, like, I don't particularly, I'm not particularly against people using religion as a cause for the way they vote, but, it depends on the cause.
Also, sorry.
Do you
have like a second question?
Yes.
Just a follow-up question, this is towards everyone. How's everyone's view of freedom of religion? Because to me, it seems like there's a bias towards Christianity. And like, I remember there was a mosque that wanted to be built right next to Ground Zero, and everyone was protesting that. But to me, it seemed like they had the right to do that. What is everyone's view on?
Well,
I mean,
no one said that they couldn't, but it's just a matter of emotion, I guess. I mean, how would you feel if one of your parents died in 9/11 and because due to a
I don't think all Muslims
radical
are.
religious belief? I know, but yeah, it is. But due to a radical Muslim religion, your parents died on 9/11, for example. How would, like, I don't think, I mean, that, I'm just explaining from a protester's point of view. But I had something else to say about your first question. When,
I'm sorry for interrupting.
you're fine.
I don't mean to disrespect you.
You're fine. When people start to lose their morals, it costs everyone, especially the system that we have today. Like the growing rate of babies being born out of wedlock, people don't really have I mean, the only reason for that, people don't really have the morals like they did years and years ago. And that costs everybody. 75% of welfare recipients are single mothers. And I'm not saying that, you know, I mean, of course stuff happens, like people might have been married before and they got a divorce, but for the most part, I've done a lot of investigating on this. Single mothers who just, I don't know, they just don't have people just, when they lose their morals, it's at the cost of everybody. And if we didn't have that kind of system, then I wouldn't feel that way. But we do have a system that.
We can open up this question to you guys.
They can take it. It looks like I'm pretty excited for it.
So you're saying being a single mother is immoral?
No, but it is. It costs everybody.
Can we get their opinion? We can have questions after.
Not in all cases.
All right.
But
Well, here you see a very clear dichotomy between the two major parties. They said that the nation's founded.
Just to clarify, that was a personal opinion. Like, that's not like.
Okay, well, many in your party share that belief. We Democrats tend to disagree with that. We fully believe in the separation of church and state, as laid out in the First Amendment of the Constitution. But other than that, I think we need to be careful about judging people of an entire religion based on the actions of a few. Not to say we don't need to combat Islamic extremism, but we can't let that turn into Islamophobia, you know? Furthermore, I think our morals are just fine. You know, we can go back 200 years and see slavery, which is a huge moral issue at the time. We've solved that. So I got to disagree and say we're getting better. That being said, this whole thing about single mothers, I mean, this is also coming from the party that's against abortion and against sex ed, unless it's abstinence only, and against access to contraceptives. So you hear a lot of pointing fingers, but you don't hear any solutions on that side of the aisle.
Libertarians, before you respond, do you want to say anything on this?
Yeah, sure. We'll just be pretty quick. Libertarians do not believe in legislating morality, immoral, amoral, super moral, extra moral, whatever. Unless somebody's being hurt, do what you want. So if you want to get gay married, if you want to get out of wedlock married, if you want to have 10 kids out of wedlock, I don't care. Okay? What I think is my moral standard. What I think is my moral standard is not something that our Constitution, that our government is supposed to address. That being said, I find it highly offensive that certain parties are implying that it's bad to have children out of wedlock,
No,
especially as a child who was born out of wedlock.
It is a fact. It costs everybody. Who can support a child better, one person or two? And
I would say a gay couple can support children.
I agree with that. I would agree with what you just said if we didn't live in a system that we don't hold people accountable for their actions. Because we don't. Right now.
But you're saying it's an action that needs to be held accountable for, that it is something that is wrong.
It's not wrong. If you can support the kid on your own, if you can support it on your own, you're fine. But 75% of welfare in this country goes to single mothers who can't support their kids.
We really want to get other questions, not just related to this subject. You, sir.
Okay.
Ma'am?
Yes.
Sir.
Okay, long hair jokes aside, I have a question for all three of you guys. Just speculate with me here. What do you guys think will happen if government decided to increase minimum wage?
Well, I mean, that's kind of a question that needs a lot of kind of prior research, and I don't think we're going to get so, like, I mean, do you guys want to talk about this? Is this
Each will get 30 seconds.
Yeah, okay, each gets 30 seconds, that's fine.
Since that's a Democratic idea, do y'all mind if I take this first? I would say that's a fundamentally good idea. Kind of goes back to what I was saying, that demand for goods and services is what creates jobs once the middle and lower classes have money to spend. So I think it's good in that respect. Obviously, we can't raise minimum wage to an exorbitantly high number, but $9 I've seen floating around, $11 I've seen floating around. Those would be reasonable steps to ensure that the money gets from the businesses to the people.
Do you guys want to next?
I mean, it's, it's an honorable idea, but the best way, to increase your income is to, like work hard and eventually
Work your way up.
work your way up. And so that's basically my opinion on it.
Also,
It's not a official party platform on it, but that's my opinion.
the whole idea of progressivism is, if we increase the minimum wage again, it's just going to keep increasing and increasing. Once $9 isn't enough, then it's going to be 11, then it's going to be 15, then it's going to be 20.
Businesses can't afford it.
Yeah, businesses can't afford it, and
So we want people to have upward mobility and
and I feel like when people get too comfortable with minimum wage, it doesn't drive them to
higher jobs.
Yeah.
Libertarians?
And we'll be real quick with this. Again, back to the economics here. When you institute a price floor, there is a shortfall between supply and demand that could be met if you didn't have that price floor. The price floor here is minimum wage. So how this comes into play is that I may be profitable to Walmart at $8 an hour. That is, I bring them $8.01 worth of profit for every hour I work, and they have to pay me right now $8. If you raise the minimum wage to, let's say, $9, the people who are profitable at $8 an hour are no longer profitable because the company can't employ them at $9 an hour, otherwise they're losing money. And I think we can all agree that companies are all profit-seeking entities. They're not doing this out of the goodness of their hearts. So for those people who are the exact people that you were trying to help, the people living and making the money at or near minimum wage, raising the minimum wage is very harmful for those people. Every time you see a minimum wage hike, you see an unemployment increase as well, because there are people who can't get jobs, who cannot be employed at $9, $10 an hour because they're not profitable at that rate. And the vast majority of people who work at minimum wage it's students who work either part-time or people who are just entering the job market who are entering part-time. And that's according to the Department of Labor Statistics. I believe it was 97% of people who make minimum wage do so in a part-time job.
Any other questions? You, sir.
I have a question for all three parties, but particularly the Libertarian Party. I'd like you to answer first. There's been a lot of discussion on Obamacare lately and the goods and the bads. A lot of people, for example, don't like the individual mandate. But what I don't think is talked about enough is maybe some of the good parts, or potentially good parts. I want to know how you all feel about the online marketplace, because all three of you support free market values to a degree. And the online marketplace shows all your options and allows you to be a better consumer. I would like to know if you agree or disagree with this statement, and do you think if Obamacare, whether scrapped or kept, should keep the online marketplace?
I don't want to stop you, but I mean, we did already kind of talk about Obamacare. Like, that was one of the questions beforehand. Is there any specific points you want to make on this?
I mean, if we 10 seconds for each organization to say rather than
what's your question? Like, if we think the online marketplace is good?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. No, not actually, no. Website, it's not working, but if it was working the way it was planned to.
Rather be online than like.
Yeah, it sounds perfect on paper, but.
I think an online marketplace would be a great idea if it were not mandated. In fact, for example, Geico is trying to do that between multiple states as far as car insurance goes. I think we would see the exact same thing happen in the free market without us mandating an online marketplace if we, as I said earlier, repealed the federal ban against competing across state lines. If there are organizations that are competing, then there are certainly third-party organizations who have a financial incentive to provide all of that information in one place that's easy to look up.
We think the online marketplace is a good thing.
And we can't just cross our fingers and hope that some company does this for us. I think it's the government's role here to provide it. All I can say is wait a few weeks and we'll really see how good it is.
You had a question?
Yeah, and this gentleman right here was like raised his hand, started right after I did. But
Oh no, I mean it's.
I just want to make sure you can raise his hand.
Random.
All right, so I have a question for you guys. Would you be more inclined to be for ACA if the Bitter Amendment is passed?
I mean, yeah, I think the Bitter Amendment is like honorable because, you know, we don't want our politicians to be treated differently than, you know, average Americans. So I support like Senator Bitter, and I think most Republicans do support Senator Bitter's amendment, but I'm not supporting Obamacare. But I think that step that he took is really important because a lot of Democrats say, oh, it's all the Republicans' fault because they didn't do anything to try and remedy Obamacare or Affordable Care Act, excuse me. And this is like an example of someone trying to do that, and I think it's a good idea.
Well, what remedy does it give?
It
doesn't really give a remedy.
It's not a remedy, but it makes the politicians have to be on exchanges.
Politicians should have to
They
live
should.
under the laws that they
Just like the American people. So it's not a remedy, but it's, you know, a solution to an issue that a lot of people prioritize.
I think it could eventually lead to, if they enroll in it and they see problems that the average people are encountering, then maybe they would change their mind a little bit.
We have a question?
Just two things to the libertarians. First of all, the cotton gin, that invention actually increased like the number of slaves in the South because it made cotton more of a desirable thing because it made it much easier to work with. That didn't really create jobs so much as it did create slavery. And that goes on to my next point, the reason why I went for that, is that the libertarians not believe in like a safety net for people, because John Locke once said that the government, or I believe this is John Locke, I could be wrong, I can't remember the exact person, but you give up certain inalienable rights to the government for the protection of the services. And I was just wondering, do libertarians believe that each individual is like responsible for their own self, or is there any way, do libertarians believe in a net provided by the people? Because I feel like taxes go to like the government, which as an entity is elected by officials. If you strip that away, like where exactly is people, when people have a problem or something out of their control, where are they going to get help?
I believe that quote is actually Hobbes, Thomas Hobbes, in his social contract theory, but I'm not going to correct you. Anyways, the important part is that it gets down to the difference in a view of what government is supposed to do. Before I really get into this, I'm going to stress that just because I do not believe the government should do something, just because I do not believe the government has an obligation to do something, doesn't mean that I don't believe that we as individuals should do something, or we as individuals have a moral obligation to do something. That said, I don't think that the government should be in the business of committing charity. They're called the government, not the charity ment. Their job is to govern. The only thing government should be doing is keeping me from hurting someone else. Okay, it shouldn't stop me from hurting me. It shouldn't be providing goods and services. It shouldn't be a positive entity. It's supposed to be a neutral entity to keep people from hurting each other. It's not supposed to do moral good. That said, I absolutely believe that people who fall upon hard times, it's not necessarily their fault. And I think that there should be, I fully support systems, private systems, to try and help those people out. I personally volunteered time and money for Habitat for Humanity. I work with a lot of charity organizations certainly throughout high school and now throughout college. I certainly believe in charity. I just don't believe that the government is set up to be able to afford to do charity, nor do I believe that morally they are supposed to be set up to do charity.
Is there anyone else who wants to speak on this?
Yeah, there's a reason why libertarian ideas only exist in theory. That's because it just doesn't work. If you get rid of minimum wage, then we're going to have to really increase the amount of money we give to welfare recipients, or increase a welfare program. Because there's still going to be poor people if you don't have a minimum wage there. Furthermore, I think the government has a responsibility to prevent people from starving or in the streets, because then you'll see an increase in violence. You say that's the only realm of government. Yeah.
And also, like you say that like charity, like individual charity will come and take the place of what the government does now. That, again, that's never happened anywhere in history. And it's not going to happen anywhere in the future either. So it's sort of like a cop-out.
Can I clarify on the single mom? There's nothing immoral about being a single mother if you can support the child yourself. But Republicans do believe that it is immoral to rely on everybody else around you for support.
Yes,
That's what I meant by that.
Republican
I did
platform
not
at
mean
all.
to offend anybody. If you want to have a kid out of wedlock and you can support it without the government's help,
Go ahead.
I mean, that'd be it.
The question had to do with if we minded if politicians took religion into consideration when voting, and the answer to that is no, we don't mind.
Okay, I did call on you, but you...
No.
Okay, yes.
Okay. Directed to the Democrats here. I want the two of you together to explain to me in a way that makes sense and that's effective how the Affordable Care Act is going to be beneficial to me and to everybody else in this room and to everybody in this country, when nearly a third of the population is either seeing their rates go up or being dropped from their policy completely. My family personally being affected by that. I want you to explain to me how taking away our freedom to choose and how the government stepping in and doing that for us, which implies that we're too stupid to figure it out ourselves.
I think we understand the gist of the question. I don't want to stop you, but we do kind of have to get, there's a lot of
I
people.
wanted to answer.
Did your parents, so your parents got kicked off their insurance plan?
Our rates went up.
Your rates
Dramatically.
went up, okay.
Over 80% higher.
Well, I'll tell you, I mean, like if you said your parents got kicked off of their insurance plan, I would say, well, that's because your parents' insurance plan was terrible. It's probably a good thing.
Who says that they're terrible?
They're bad plans.
What
They
if
don't.
they like their plans?
And
People can like bad things that are very bad.
but it's all opinion.
Who are you to
It's
say
not,
that's
no, it's not.
bad?
It's not opinion. It's not. It's not a matter of opinion whether an insurance plan is beneficial to someone or bad. That's not an opinion. I mean, that you're dealing with like facts, right?
College Republicans, you wanted to say something? Or can we move on to other questions?
Who are you to say whether his parents' health care plan is good or not? Like, who is the government to say whether it's good or not? It's up, I mean, who can choose your health care better, or your health insurance better than you? I mean, it just makes virtually no sense.
I mean,
it's like the government saying you're too stupid to choose your health insurance plan, so we're going to choose it for you.
Well, you're over there smiling, laughing about it. Explain it to me.
Because I mean, you're asking us to explain something that's just so bizarre. Like you're telling me that the reason why that plan was dropped is because the benefits that it gives are not satisfactory for the amount that you're paying into. It's a bad piece. It's a bad insurance company. I mean, you want to say something?
Yes. If we're going to make this system effective, universal, everyone, we have to have everyone on board for this thing. Because we're already paying for those without insurance when they go to the ER, which I maintain is the conservative position on this. Rather than go to a regular physician, just go to the ER where taxpayers pay all of it. So I mean, you're paying for it one way or another.
Okay. Yes.
Me?
Yes, and then followed by...
I have a question for the College Republicans. So you said that abortion is murder, but then you said that if you were going to be a single parent, you need to be able to take care of yourself and your family. So, but if you're not allowing them to have an abortion, then, and they have the kid, then you're also not allowing them to take care of their family if they can't afford to have the kid.
There's adoption, 1. 2, don't have unprotected sex in the first place if you are not married and know you cannot financially support your child. That might sound unrealistic, but there are, I mean, providing free birth control has proved to not be that effective. I mean, you can go anywhere now, and I mean, I haven't seen, the out-of-wedlock birth rate is at 40% right now, and that's, I mean, it's just gone up over time, and it's, I don't know, just don't have sex in the first place if you can't financially, or unprotected sex if you can't financially support the child.
I think what we're trying to say is that you should be responsible for for your family in all aspects, and you know, you are responsible for.
I don't want to let this, you know.
The murder thing was a personal opinion.
Okay.
I believe it's murder, like.
All right. Can we just quick, sort of 30-second answers for? Do you want to respond to this? No. Okay.
I'm glad you point out the it doesn't really fit the Republicans' plan here. But if you want to see low abortion rates, then you have to see high use of contraceptives. You have to see, and to see that you have to get rid of abstinence-only sexual education, which has been proven time and again not to work. In states with abstinence-only sex ed, you have a higher rate of out-of-wedlock pregnancies. Additionally, contraception has to be available, which is why I think it's so great the Affordable Care Act requires insurance companies to provide birth control.
Does contraception work 100% of the time?
So you're telling me it's a woman's right to have unprotected sex, like as in unprotected without a condom, which causes STDs. Birth control does not prevent STDs.
All right, I didn't say that. I said you need contraception.
She really wants to ask a question.
Yeah, I know. I told
We
them
have two over here that really want to ask questions. They don't.
Okay, I actually have a question for the College Democrats. I'm a little confused on the whole issue of the NSA, because I know the College Republicans said they didn't have an issue with it, the Libertarians said they had a major issue with it. I'm not entirely sure, though, what your position is. So do you think, like, what we know about what the NSA is doing now, is that, do you support what they're doing? I know you said more transparency, but does that mean that if they just tell us they're doing it, that it's okay that they keep doing it or not?
I mean, it's a very complicated issue, and I mean, I don't think any of us really know what the extent is really, or what it is. But that's why I say that in the modern age, when it's going to happen, I mean, that's how counterterrorism and law enforcement is done in the modern world. What we need and should demand is more transparency. I mean, do you want to say anything about that?
I mean, we do need more checks, more oversight. We already have some. It's not nearly as bad as the days of warrantless wiretapping under Bush. We have the FISA court, which I'd love to see more.